This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I have another good friend of mine, Jennifer Hutchins, who's the founder and president of All Entertainment Business. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
So let's start. Your career is absolutely amazing, and I'd love to walk through the journey of everything. I know we won't be able to do it in our program, but real quick, tell us about your company first, and then I'd love to have you tell us about your background starting growing up in Ohio and Flint, Michigan, and your experience in LA and Hollywood. But tell me about your business.
My business is called allentertainmentbusiness.com. And I didn't start this to be a business. I started this to be helpful to people who wanted a career in the entertainment business or who are existing in the entertainment business. So I started throwing monthly events where I invite people at any level to come network with each other and have a guest speaker that's giving some sort of advice about how to level up, make money, sell your projects. I felt like there was a big hole and a need for this sort of information. Networking in general sometimes is a little bit depressing. It seems true. That people are more geared to go out and network when they're in between jobs. Right. And so I wanted to figure out a way to attract people that are working now just to come see a cool guest speaker.
So it started basically as a meetup group?
Yeah, so it just started as a meetup group. And then I found a big need and a hunger of people wanting information. And as a former journalist, I've had fun being the host and interviewer of these guest speakers. Right. So it's fun for people. But yeah, the group grew to it's nearly 30,000 people outreach now.
Oh, wow.
And, they just want more information about the entertainment business.
30,000 people just in Texas and Austin or throughout the country?
There's about 20,000 in the state of Texas outreach, a lot of people in the Austin area, and then another 10,000 or so, LA, New York, and beyond. That really came on and started tuning in during the pandemic when we just went straight to Zoom. So I had started this where I just invited everybody I'd ever worked with for nearly 2 decades to come and watch cool guest speakers. So it's very heavy on producers and directors and big movers and shakers.
So here's what's neat then. So our program is Business Decoded, and I've always had a fascination for the TV and film industry, but you've lived your career in that space. What was it like working in Hollywood? And I'd love for you to tell us about some of the programs that you worked on. You worked on some really amazing programs. You've met some incredible people. A lot of the big name actors we know you've worked with. And I've just, every conversation we've had, I've enjoyed learning from you. So if I could just follow you around the country, I would.
Well, Hollywood is everything it's rumored to be and more. It's not for the weak, and it's not for you to go have some therapy because you didn't get enough attention or prove something because you now want to be a star.
Right.
Those are the people that will get spit out. It's a lot of hard work, and your heart has to be in the right place. You have to truly enjoy the creative process, and it's not just all fun and games at times. There's serious work and serious hours, and it's a constant learning curve. The industry is constantly changing, and it's extremely competitive. Right behind you, there's 1,000 people lined up to do it quicker, faster, and cheaper than you. And so you're just constantly fighting for your place in the business, which, it makes it excellent. It makes it exciting, but it makes it scary. That there's a lot of reward involved in that, when you actually get your seat at the table and you get to participate in that.
It's interesting. I have a lot of conversations with business people, and I've been having more conversations with people who've built a career in sports. And it's really the same. If you're a sports person, you get to college, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people coming right behind you at your own university on the football team or basketball team or volleyball team that are looking to take your spot. And business is the same way. You create a business, and the question becomes, of all of your competitors, who's going to survive? I think back, you probably remember Myspace. So Myspace was around, and you think, who's Facebook and why they're important? Because we already have Myspace. And then Facebook becomes the dominant social media platform of that kind. So you're right. There's always someone right behind you looking to do it better, cheaper, faster.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up Myspace, because I used to use Myspace a lot to invite people to attend live screenings of Criss Angel Mindfreak, if you remember that show.
How funny.
It was the number one show on A&E for years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we ended up in over 1 billion homes globally before streaming. So giant number. And we were second to soccer in Latin America.
Oh, gosh.
But when we were first starting, right at the beginning, season 1 had aired, and then I was in Vegas for season 2. And this was about the time it was going to really pick up. So people didn't quite know it yet.
Right.
And, trying to gather an audience to watch a live taping in Vegas was very difficult, because people were in Vegas for specific reasons, or to drink or to have fun.
Right.
And say, come stand here and watch this for an hour or 5 was not appealing to everybody.
Right.
So I had to go use MySpace and put the word out to get the masses. And, to be honest with you, that's how the inception of all entertainment business came to be, because I got very used to gathering large amounts of people to watch a live taping, and learned how to organize lists of people. Right. So I did the same with my colleagues. And so years later, when I was like, let's all, level up in the entertainment business and help the underdog and protect the indie world, I already had a list.
Now, what year was that when you were in Vegas and you were using MySpace?
The show started in 2005. So I think it was 2006 that I was, feet on the ground in Vegas, trying to pull some crowds.
And so and I asked because that's really fascinating. The iPhone hadn't come out yet by then. Yeah. And a lot of the social media hadn't evolved. You didn't have Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all these other platforms. MySpace was probably about the main platform back in that era. And so for you to do something then that today seems common is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was partnering up with some of the bigger influencers on MySpace who would post messages on my behalf because they had large audiences.
Right.
So I was already schmoozing with the influencers of MySpace.
That is hilarious. And so how did you end up on that program, by the way, particularly given that it became so large? How did you end up getting a seat at the table, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So I started my career in broadcast journalism at CBS in Michigan. And after a year, I realized my heart was not in news. I didn't like the politics of behind the scenes of being a journalist. It was really, really hard across the board, whatever news station you're working at, to get out a true story. Because a lot of times your source, the real story, isn't willing to come forward.
Right. And
you have to question who's your source and why and what are their intentions. And then also who owns the news stations.
Right.
They're not publicly funded. So that means somebody has an agenda. So with all of that and the low pay, I thought, well, this is a no-win situation. But I still like to tell stories. So I moved out to LA thinking I might get into fluff journalism, and worked at E! Entertainment for about a year. And then I started getting the acting itch, and became a actress, waitress.
Wow.
For a couple of years. And, this is in my 20s.
Right.
And, became union. At the time, AFTRA and SAG were two separate unions. So I joined AFTRA first, and then finally got into SAG, which was a big deal to get into, become eligible and actually get into SAG. And, I started not really liking, 1,000 auditions to maybe get one part either.
Right.
And, the industry was very difficult for a blonde, pretty girl in her 20s,
Right.
to be honest with you. You got bumped around a lot. At one point, I was told by my agent, a reputable agent, told me that I should loosen up and go where nobody knows me and do an amateur night at a strip pole.
Oh, wow.
So that he could loosen me up to introduce me to directors and producers at Hollywood parties.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah. So all that stuff was real. I met a producer at the time and who was just a friend. And one day I just had it and said, do you need help? And he said, well, I always need help. And I said, okay, great. Will you hire me as your assistant? Well, no, I don't have a budget for that. And I said, how about a few $100 a week? He said, oh, I have a budget for that. I could do that. I said, great. When do I start? And started working for him. And we sat shoulder to shoulder. I couldn't live off a few $100 a week. I charged everything on my credit card. But we sat shoulder to shoulder, and he taught me everything he knew about producing. He would make the first round of phone calls, and I would listen. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to jump in and make phone calls too. But if I screw up, can I say, you know what? Hold on one second. I'm going to pass you to my supervisor. And so we would play that game until I learned how to become comfortable getting people to do whatever I was asking. And at the time it was clearing music videos. But to answer your question,
clearing music videos. Okay.
Yeah, I was clearing music videos. He was starting an online music video channel. And so I needed to get permission from the music labels to show their videos and have them send us the little mini DVC Pro tapes that we would, ingest and edit and put up on the web, which was actually very forward thinking for its time.
Wow, that is incredible. I think so. Having done this program and having people listen to try to figure out how to get in whatever industry they're looking to get in, what you just described is very entrepreneurial. So you were basically willing to work nearly for free, charge your bills to your credit card, just so that you can get in and learn. You were willing to make that commitment. And a lot of people fear that part of what you just described because in their mind, they can't make a living. But the education you got out of that experience was more valuable at that point in your career than getting the income.
Yeah, it was. I cleared over 200 music videos.
Wow. In
that time period. And he said, you're a producer. I said, what is a producer? A person who makes things happen. And so I helped produce a show for AOL Red, which was ahead of its time. Also, it was a channel designed for teens on the web. I oversaw a letter writing campaign where all these kids from around the country sent in letters saying why these two guys in a Winnebago should come to their hometown and film with them doing something funny.
Okay.
And I always remember this one kid who wrote in and said he would take them chicken chasing. Right. I said, what is chicken chasing? And they showed up and had lemonade on the porch and then went chicken chasing. But after those two things, that producer got offered to run a TV series about a magician.
Okay.
And nobody thought it could be done because it was a guy named Michael Blum. Nobody thought it could be done at the time because magicians only had 1 hour specials. There wasn't enough magic to do a whole series of magic tricks. I mean, there's only essentially 5 things you can do. You can make something appear out of nowhere. You can make it vanish. You can make it levitate.
Right.
More things. But, it's like, how do you produce enough content to have, this whole half-hour long show? And, he along with Criss Angel and a team figured it out. And
so he and Criss Angel partnered up.
What's that?
See, he and Criss Angel partnered up.
Well, Criss Angel hired him. I mean, he interviewed a lot of different producers to run the show and decided that Michael was it. And so I was producing the kid thing and the music video thing from Michael's home office at the time. And, things were going really well. And so he said, do you want to go to Vegas with me to do this show? And I said, no, I'll just stay in the home office and keep the momentum of what we're doing. He'd actually even given me ownership in the music video stuff. And so he went and produced season 1, and then he came back. He said, this is going to be something. Right. Let's put laser focus on this. I can hire you, but I can only hire you as a runner because you have no credits. And I'm like, what do you mean I have no credits? Right. I was a broadcast journalist for CBS. My stories have aired on CBS and CNN as a reporter who wrote, shot, and edited her own stuff. I just produced a whole music video channel for you and a kid tour, and AOL's happy. And now what are you talking about? I don't have any credits. He said, well, on the resume, they need to see all kinds of things. Otherwise, that are in TV series. Right. Otherwise, you're considered a no credit person. So you got to start at the bottom. And so I did. And they were editing season 1 of the show. And my job was to get everybody coffee, run errands, buy paper, buy whatever what was needed, sweep the floor on the way out, organize tapes, just basic bare minimum stuff. And I was happy to be there. I was, there was 10,000 other people that wanted to be in my seat working for a TV series. And I at least was in that door. So every day they would say, the guy I was working under, he was the coordinator, and he'd say, okay, Jen, you can go home now. And I would say, well, why are you still here? Right. Like, what do you need help with? And I would stay longer so he could leave too. And I started learning his job. And season 2 got a TV special. I think it was a Halloween special, got greenlit right away. And he decided that he was not going to do the special. And so I looked at the producers and I said, well, I know his job. I've been learning it. I could do it. And so they let me be the post coordinator for the special. Wow. And so
they fully gave you that position? You weren't at that point working in the shadows?
No, because I had been staying, until he left also, helping him do his job and learn what his job was.
It's intriguing though about it. And I've spoken to a lot of young people and people that I've helped through their careers. There are quite a few people that when they get to where you were at that time, having been on television already, you were a reporter, as you mentioned, you did your own editing. They don't feel that they can step back and do a lot of the grunt work. And so they miss out on opportunities because they're not willing to make that pivot. It's below them. And you're willing to take that step back. And then you spent extra time learning, really on your own time, those other jobs. So when that opportunity became available, you were ready.
Yeah. I think I was making $50 a day at that point too. Gosh. And working 12-hour plus. Right. But this was my life. This was my dream. Right. So I didn't have anywhere else to be. This is where I wanted to be. I was in a bungalow in Hollywood. I mean, that to me, growing up in Michigan in a small town, I'm like, I'm in Hollywood. I'm in a bungalow. I love it. It didn't matter what I was doing.
Jennifer, that bungalow probably cost like $4,000 a month. At this point, wherever you were living, it's expensive in Southern California to live in LA.
Yeah. So season 2 got greenlit pretty fast after that special. And I said, hey, hire me as an associate producer. And that's the lowest level producer for TV series. Right. And I said, I am cheaper than everybody else you would interview. And if I don't meet your expectations, fire me. And they were like, sounds good. Right. And, I kept doing that basically. Right. So, I would, stay extra hours. I would take over the jobs nobody wanted to do. Right. So eventually I ended up taking over the entire TV series calendar, which was like playing a very elaborate game of chess. You had to set these illusions on certain days and talk to all the different departments to see if they could all come together seamlessly to be able to be ready to shoot a magic illusion. So it was, a few different secret departments and makeup and wardrobe and all these people that were, preparing thousands of items simultaneously for thousands of segments and illusions that all had to be, placed on a calendar. And I eventually ended up overseeing the whole show.
Oh, gosh. How long did it take you to reach that point where you were overseeing the entire show?
By season 4, I was a senior producer, which means I was overseeing the other producers.
Very impressive.
I think that was on year 3.
Right. You just mentioned something that I think is a great Business Decoded tip. So I'd love to come back to some of those tips that you will offer later. But you said take the job that no one else was willing to do.
Yeah.
And that is a vital point for people looking to build a business or build a career in a direction they want to go. Even if they become CEO, I think it's so helpful to take that job that no one else was willing to do, because for me, I've done something similar. You learn so much. In some of the companies, I may have started out at a lower level position, but I can say that I probably knew more about the organization in that lower level position than even the executives at that point in my career, because like you, I stayed late, I arrived early, I was willing to go to any event that I could get into within the organization, any meeting, any board meeting, and just learn.
Yep. I have yet to find somebody with that hunger. Right. I can't find an assistant that has the hunger like that. I didn't realize it at the time that was rare, but man, it was noticed.
Right.
Because I stayed with that same pattern my entire career. Even when I was doing acting before I got into the producing lane, I couldn't get my last voucher to become eligible for the union. And a friend of mine was dating a producer. She had worked on Reservoir Dogs and another group of very high level movies. And he said, well, maybe she'll help you get the last voucher. And I said, well, why would she? She doesn't know me.
Right.
And I said, what does she need? And he said, well, she needs help. Like she's just behind on stuff, like organizing receipts and stuff. And I said, tell her I'll do it for free. And so he did. And she's like, really? And so I went over and on my own time, like just picked a few hours a week and sat there at her table and organized receipts, put them into an Excel sheet for her. And then I would go get her lunch and we would sit there and have lunch together. And we formed this beautiful friendship. I mean, we were friends until she passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, but friends for almost 20 years. But when I was helping her, she got a movie greenlit and she hired me to come on there and be a production assistant. So I got a job out of it.
Nice.
And then one day she said, don't come in as a production assistant today, come in as an extra.
Okay.
A background talent. And so I came in as a background. And then towards the latter half of the day, they called me over and gave me a line. And if you get a line, a speaking role on a SAG movie, you become eligible for the union. Wow. So I got my voucher.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that last voucher that you needed to get came through coming in as an extra first, and then they converted it basically to a speaking line, which gave you what you needed.
But I mean, I got a really good credit on my resume for working for a big movie. And then I became union, all for just, coming in a few hours a week to help her organize some receipts. And I got a friend out of it.
Nice.
And she taught me what it was like to work on really high level movies.
Right.
So I did that a third time, by the way, when I wanted, 10 years later, I'd been producing all these TV series and I wanted to do film. And I realized you couldn't just jump over. There was different lingo. There was a different clique of people who were in that industry. And they were like, oh, you do nonfiction television. We are the film people. You don't even know what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, great. Do I really have to start at the bottom?
Right.
And I was hopping on telecalls before Zoom, and listening to people give advice. And I was going to these seminars and workshops, just absorbing anything I could about the film industry and trying to meet somebody that might give me an opportunity. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my skill set, I was writer, director, casting, all of those things were encompassed under the producer title for nonfiction series. So I didn't understand how to get a role in film because those are all separate jobs.
Right.
So finally I met this woman named Suzanne Lyons, and I said, she did a telecall, and she gave her contact information at the end. And so I sent her an email right away and said, hey, I've been producing TV series for 10 years, but I really, really want to do film. And I think I have some holes to fill in my knowledge. Do you need any help? Like, I would be willing to intern for free for you with a producer level of knowledge just to learn the film industry side. And she goes, quote unquote, holy shit, no one ever offers that. Yes. When can you come? And so I went to her office in Burbank a few hours a week on my own time, whatever worked out for me, and helped her around the office and made phone calls on her behalf. And we would have lunch together. And to this day, we're 20-year plus friendship now.
So the other thing, Jennifer, that I speak to people a lot is on my list of business tips that I give people. That relationship building that you've done by offering your talents for free to get in the door is incredible. So not only did you get in free and get the experience, but you're making some really good friendships along the way within your industry segment.
Yeah. And the point being, I'm not saying that people should go just, work for free and not get paid their value.
Right.
But here's the thing. If you can't get in the door, you got to figure out any way possible to get in the door. And the reason it's hard to get in the door in a lot of these industries is people don't trust you.
Correct.
They don't know you, and things are moving really, really fast.
They are.
So if you look at movie credits or TV show credits, you'll see the same people working together time and time again.
Right.
Because you just want the people around you to know what they're doing, right. And you don't want to have to tell them, or you don't want them to screw something up, because right. It's fast paced and high quality is the thing you have to do. So to get your seat in that trust, right. It's like, how do you earn the trust? So even doing something as simple as organizing somebody's receipts, it shows that you care, right. And they can see how fast you're doing it, even though it's mundane.
It is. I had lunch the other day with a young man that has a business, very successful business, a few $1 million in revenue. And we were talking about investors. And I said, I'll take you out to meet some of these investor types. And he said, well, Ronnie, what do I need to show them? And I think he was looking for these 10 points, like this whole list of items that he needs to demonstrate. The only thing I said to him was that they need to trust you, because once they trust you, then they'll give you that opportunity. If you can demonstrate that you're reliable, that you're good, you're not going to take advantage of them, which is this trust piece, then you're fine. But I think he was expecting something a lot more complicated. But you're absolutely right, Jennifer. Once you build that trust and they know that you're a respectable person, that you can deliver, then they'll work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah. So do this. I know we're at the end of this. I definitely want you back on the program again. Walk me through some of your other credentials. You've worked on 70 television series. You've worked on a bunch of other similar programs. Walk us through some of those. You mentioned Criss Angel, but you have just an incredible history of television and related work.
Yeah. So I was the supervising producer for a TV series called That Animal Rescue Show.
Right.
The director, Richard Linklater, you might know him from Boyhood, Dazed and Confused. He was a director on that, along with a guy named Bill Gutentag. And we produced 10 half-hour episodes about animal rescue, but it was the animals actually rescuing the people. Right. Sort of really sweet stories. And I just loved how these episodes came together. And Bill had won a couple of Oscars in documentaries. And at the time, I had met a man who was sitting on all this home video footage of his life that essentially showed you what it's like to go through bipolar. And so I took it to Bill, and we ended up working on that movie together. It's called Spiral with a Y. And it's home videos twisted together in 80 minutes that show you what it's like for one family to go through bipolar. And Bill did an amazing job putting that together. So those are some of the more recent projects. I also have a few projects coming down the pipeline with producer Elizabeth Avian, who's known for the Spy Kids franchise, Desperado, Dusk Till Dawn.
Right.
And I'd known her for years and years before I ever got my foot in the door. And when the door opened, it was to line produce a movie that half of it had already been shot and then shut down during the pandemic. And now they finally were going to shoot the other half of it. And the amount of money they had and the amount of days, like most people would have ran.
Wow.
It was low and slim.
Right.
And I just walked right in there, shuffled it together, and took us in. And she goes, "Yep, you're a keeper."
I love it. I love it. And so when we come back on the next program, I want to speak more about the movie Spiral that you mentioned. I attended one of your movie premieres. Absolutely incredible movie. I think the way you filmed it and pieced it together through existing home videos was amazing. But let's get back to that the next program. But walk me through, you've met some really amazing actors and actresses, and have you been to any of the award ceremonies as well?
No.
Okay.
I would like to eventually.
Okay. Yeah, that's me. And I know you have a bunch of trophies. Yeah. You have a lot of trophies on your shelf already.
Yeah. So a lot of those were for Criss Angel. And then there was another series called The Imploders. I had discovered a family of people that bring down skyscrapers with dynamite. And they got their own series. And I imploded a building for the Criss Angel show. He wanted to attempt to escape a building before a wrecking ball.
Right.
And then that turned into, what about implosion? And there's only a few companies in the whole US at the time that did building implosions. And I think it's probably the same. And I spent months and months just trying to find one building to bring down. I mean, during that time, I became an implosion expert. And so when I finally had a building 2 weeks out before we were supposed to go live for the first time ever live on A&E, we got shut down by endangered sea turtles on the beach. And they said, "You cannot implode a building." And so I had a plan B building, but they were going to wrecking ball it. So I flew on a red eye, immediately got the entire city into a room, the police, the fire, the mayor, the film commission, the imploders, a magician. And I stood at the top of the table and I explained exactly how this building was going to be safely imploded and how the security ring around the building was going to work with a film crew and an implosion crew, and how everybody's jobs were going to roll and how they would get walkie-talkies and I would be communicating with the police force and the fire. And we're going to make the city look great, and we're going to fill all the hotel rooms. And it's just going to be one big giant advertisement for the city of Clearwater. And they all went, "Oh, let's implode it."
They did.
So 2 weeks later, we went live with a 9-story building called the Spyglass in Clearwater, Florida. And I was standing on the sand in front of it, and it imploded towards me. And at that moment, I hadn't thought about it. I'm like, I'm in the path of the building implosion. How did this happen?
So what happened? You were safe at sea?
No, spoiler. I survived.
Okay.
Criss did not. He went down with the building.
Okay.
And then the audience went like this, and everybody's like, did we just see Criss Angel die? He was supposed to escape to the roof to a rope ladder hanging from a helicopter. And the helicopter had to fly away before the building imploded, and he didn't make it out through all these locks and chains to get up there. So anyways, the cameras waited until the smoke started to dissolve a little bit. And then they went running in to search around the rubble. And then all of a sudden he appears out of the rubble. He survived somehow.
Wow. Now, is that wasn't part of the program or the act? Like he actually had this building crash around him and it wasn't designed that way?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
so if you watch Criss Angel Mindfreak, the reruns are still happening, or Criss Angel Believe, that was another show I did with him. Every show culminated with attempting to kill Chris. Essentially, he was going to die in some sort of really horrible way.
Right.
So one show he didn't escape before a car flew off of a cliff and exploded. And everybody saw him get in the car, get changed, and they walked around the car and then stood on the other side of the cliff. And you can see him at all times. And he does not, and the car was set to go. Like there was a brick on the pedal, right? He's trying to escape and he just doesn't escape and it goes off, explodes.
Oh, gosh.
What I didn't think about at the time, though, was I was standing in the audience and I had to turn the cameras to the audience and say, how do you feel? What'd you just see? And they were like, did he just die?
Oh, no. That's pretty wild. Jennifer, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. I want you back so that we can discuss more of these types of stories. I'd love to hear maybe your most complicated project. Maybe the explosion was one, but it's so wonderful having you share the business side of the TV and movie industry.
Yeah, you know what? If I come back, if you invite me back to the next episode, I'll share some stories from the car show with Adam Carolla, some film stories, because I've done a ton of films. And let me think of some more juicy TV series stories too, 'cause there's so many of them, but it's so fun to talk about the magic. But anyways, I'll have some juicy stuff for you when we come back.
Wonderful. Jennifer, thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.